Have you ever noticed that some older men seem to attract younger women effortlessly, while others, no matter how successful they are, remain completely invisible? It isn't always about looks, it isn't always about money, and it certainly isn't because younger women are all looking for the same thing. The difference usually comes down to something much deeper, something many men never stop to consider. A surprising number of older men walk into every interaction already, assuming their age is a disadvantage. Before a conversation even begins, they've convinced themselves they're too old, too late, or competing with younger men who have already won the race. That belief quietly changes everything. It affects how they stand, how they speak, the risks they're willing to take, and even whether they introduce themselves at all. The truth is, confidence doesn't begin the moment you approach a woman. It begins long before she notices you. Before we go any further, if you're enjoying these psychology videos and want to become a man who understands attraction instead of guessing your way through it, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. There are very few places where we talk honestly about the psychology behind relationships, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Here's what many men don't realize. Younger women aren't all searching for younger men. They're searching for an experience. They notice how a man carries himself, how comfortable he is in his own skin, and whether he seems genuinely at peace with the life he's built. A man who is constantly apologizing for his age unknowingly communicates insecurity. But a man who accepts his age as part of his story communicates something far more attractive: certainty. Over the next few sections, we're going to uncover the behaviors that quietly make some older men stand out, the mistakes that instantly weaken attraction, and why trying to look younger is often the very thing that makes a man less appealing. Once you understand these psychological shifts, you'll begin seeing attraction from an entirely different perspective. One of the biggest misunderstandings older men have is believing attraction begins with appearance. They spend far too much time worrying about wrinkles, grey hair, or whether they're being compared to men 20 years younger. But that isn't usually what determines whether a younger woman becomes interested. What captures her attention is the emotional atmosphere a man creates the moment he enters her world. Think about the men who naturally draw people toward them. They don't rush to impress everyone in the room. They aren't constantly looking for approval or trying to prove they still have it. Instead, they seem comfortable letting conversations unfold naturally. That sense of ease is surprisingly rare, and rarity has a way of becoming attractive. Many older men accidentally sabotage themselves because they approach younger women with the mindset of proving they're still desirable. Every compliment, every joke, and every story becomes an attempt to convince her that they're worth noticing. Ironically, the harder a man tries to earn attraction, the more pressure he creates. And people can feel that pressure almost immediately. Confidence isn't about making someone believe you're valuable. It's about already believing it yourself. This is why truly confident men rarely rush conversations. They listen without appearing distracted. They speak without constantly seeking agreement. They're interested without becoming overly invested after just a few minutes. That emotional balance communicates far more than expensive clothes or carefully rehearsed lines ever could. The moment a younger woman realizes she's speaking to a man who isn't trying to force an outcome, the interaction begins to feel different. She doesn't feel like she's being sold a version of him. She's simply experiencing someone who is secure enough to let his personality speak for itself. And that's often where genuine attraction quietly begins. One quality that consistently separates attractive older men from those who struggle isn't charisma or wealth. It's emotional steadiness. While many people assume excitement creates attraction, emotional stability often creates something much stronger: trust. And trust is what allows attraction to grow instead of fading after the first conversation. Imagine two men meeting the same younger woman. The first becomes overly enthusiastic within minutes. He interrupts her, laughs a little too hard at everything she says, and immediately starts imagining where the relationship might go. The second enjoys the conversation just as much, but he stays grounded. He isn't trying to speed things up or create an instant connection. He's simply present. Which man feels more comfortable to be around? People are naturally drawn toward those who make them feel relaxed rather than pressured. A younger woman doesn't want to feel like she's carrying the responsibility of keeping a conversation alive or managing someone else's emotions. She wants to feel free to be herself without worrying that every word she says will be overanalyzed. This is where many older men unknowingly make a costly mistake. They mistake intensity for sincerity. They think showing overwhelming interest proves they're genuine. In reality, moving too quickly often creates the opposite effect. It, snorts, can make the interaction feel heavy before any real connection has had a chance to develop. Men who quietly stand out understand that attraction isn't built in a single afternoon. It's built through consistency. They don't chase every opportunity to impress. They allow curiosity to develop naturally, giving both people room to discover each other without unnecessary pressure. Ironically, slowing down often makes a man seem more confident. It shows that he isn't afraid of silence. He isn't desperate for immediate validation, and he trusts that if there's genuine chemistry, it won't disappear simply because he chose patience over urgency. That quiet confidence is something many younger women notice long before a man ever realizes it. Another mistake many older men make is believing they need to compete with younger men on their terms. They try to dress like them, speak like them, or copy the latest trends, hoping it will make them seem more attractive. But the moment a man starts pretending to be someone he isn't, he begins giving away the very quality that could have made him stand out in the first place. Confidence doesn't come from blending in. It comes from being completely comfortable with your own identity. Think about it for a moment. A younger woman already knows how younger men behave because she's surrounded by them every day. If an older man simply imitates that same energy, there's very little that makes him memorable. What often captures attention instead is meeting someone who has developed his own way of thinking, his own rhythm, and his own presence through years of experience. This doesn't mean becoming serious or acting like you have all the answers. It means embracing the person you've become instead of trying to erase him. There's something refreshing about talking to a man who isn't constantly changing himself to fit every room he walks into. That kind of consistency quietly communicates self-respect. People naturally trust those who appear genuine. They may not agree with everything that person says, but they can sense authenticity. And authenticity is difficult to fake because it shows up in the smallest details. How someone laughs, how they tell stories, how they react when conversations don't go exactly as planned. Ironically, many younger women aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for someone who feels emotionally settled, someone who isn't desperately trying to prove he's still young enough to matter. A man who has accepted himself without becoming arrogant creates a feeling that's difficult to explain, but easy to recognize. He doesn't need to convince anyone of his value, because the way he carries himself already suggests he knows it. The men who leave lasting impressions aren't usually the ones pretending to be younger. They're the ones who have learned that confidence grows stronger the moment you stop performing and start showing up as your real self. One of the strongest qualities an older man can develop is something that rarely gets talked about: having a purpose that exists outside of dating. This isn't about being constantly busy or pretending you don't have time for anyone. It's about building a life so meaningful that a relationship becomes an addition to it, not the center of it. Many men unknowingly reverse this order. The moment they become interested in a younger woman, everything else begins to fade into the background. Their hobbies disappear. Their goals become less important. Conversations with friends become less frequent. Without realizing it, they slowly make one person responsible for all of their happiness. That creates pressure. Healthy attraction grows best when two people bring full lives into a relationship, not when one person expects the other to complete an empty one. Have you ever met who spoke passionately about what they were building? Maybe it was a business, a career, volunteering, traveling, learning a new skill, or simply becoming a healthier version of themselves. Chances are their enthusiasm was contagious. Purpose has a unique way of changing the energy a person carries. It gives them direction, confidence, and something meaningful to wake up for each morning. Younger women often notice this long before a man realizes they're paying attention. They see someone who isn't sitting around waiting for the next text message. They see someone whose identity doesn't rise and fall based on another person's attention. That emotional independence is reassuring because it shows he knows how to create fulfillment on his own. Ironically, the less a man depends on a relationship to give his life meaning, the more enjoyable he becomes to be around. Conversations feel lighter, decisions become more confident. He listens because he's interested, not because he's afraid of saying the wrong thing. And that subtle shift changes everything. Instead of chasing validation, he begins attracting people who appreciate the life he's already built. There is another reason some older men naturally attract younger women, and it has very little to do with appearance. It's the way they communicate, not just the words they choose, but how they make another person feel during a conversation. Many men believe attraction comes from saying the perfect thing. They spend so much time thinking about clever responses that they forget the most important part of communication, paying attention. When a conversation becomes a performance, genuine connection almost always suffers. People remember how you make them feel far longer than they remember exactly what you said. Think about the last time you spoke with someone who was completely present. They weren't checking their phone every few minutes. They weren't waiting impatiently for their turn to speak. They listened carefully, asked thoughtful questions, and responded with genuine curiosity. You probably left that conversation feeling respected, even if it only lasted a few minutes. That kind of attention has become surprisingly rare. Many younger women are used to conversations that feel rushed or distracted. They're often speaking with people who are more interested in impressing them than understanding them. When an older man slows the conversation down and actually listens, he creates a completely different experience. But listening doesn't mean agreeing with everything she says. Confident men aren't afraid to have their own opinions. They can respectfully disagree without turning a conversation into an argument or feeling the need to win. That emotional maturity makes discussions feel safe rather than stressful. Perhaps most importantly, they aren't desperate to fill every moment of silence. They're comfortable allowing conversations to breathe because they aren't measuring their worth by every second of interaction. That calm presence communicates confidence in a way loud personalities rarely can. In the end, meaningful conversations aren't built on perfect lines. They're built on genuine interest, emotional awareness, and the ability to make another person feel heard. Those qualities don't simply make a man more attractive. They make him someone people genuinely enjoy spending time with. Another quality that quietly sets certain older men apart is their ability to remain emotionally grounded when things don't go exactly as they expected. Many men assume attraction is lost the moment a woman takes longer to reply, cancels a date, or seems a little distant. They immediately begin overthinking every conversation, searching for mistakes that may not even exist. But emotionally mature men respond differently. They understand that people have responsibilities, changing emotions, busy schedules, and personal challenges that often have nothing to do with them. Instead of jumping to conclusions, they give situations room to breathe. That patience communicates confidence because it shows they aren't controlled by uncertainty. One of the fastest ways to weaken attraction is by constantly seeking reassurance, repeatedly asking where you stand, questioning every small change in behavior, or needing continuous confirmation that someone still likes you can slowly turn natural conversations into emotional work. Even when those questions come from a sincere place, they often reveal fear instead of confidence. Confident men don't ignore problems when they arise, but they also don't create problems where none exist. This doesn't mean becoming cold or pretending not to care. It simply means learning the difference between responding thoughtfully and reacting emotionally. When something genuinely needs to be discussed, they address it calmly instead of letting anxiety make decisions for them. This emotional steadiness creates a feeling of security. A younger woman knows she doesn't have to constantly manage his emotions or reassure him after every small misunderstanding. She can simply enjoy getting to know him without feeling responsible for keeping his confidence intact. Ironically, the men who appear strongest aren't those who never experience doubt. They're the ones who refuse to let temporary emotions control their actions. They understand that attraction isn't built through constant reassurance. It's built through consistency, patience, and quiet self-confidence. Those qualities take time to develop, but once they become part of a man's character, they influence every relationship he builds, not just his romantic ones. Perhaps the greatest advantage many older men have is one they often overlook completely: the wisdom that comes from experience. The problem is that some men carry their experiences as heavy baggage, while others carry them as quiet confidence. The difference between the two is what people notice almost immediately. Life has probably taught you lessons that no book ever could. You've experienced success and failure. You've made decisions you were proud of and others you wish you could change. You've learned what matters and what doesn't. Those experiences can either make you bitter or make you wiser. People are naturally drawn to wisdom, but they're often pushed away by bitterness. There's a noticeable difference between a man who constantly complains about his past relationships and one who has learned from them without letting them define him. The first carries unresolved frustration into every new connection. The second carries perspective. One blames, the other understands. Younger women are often paying attention to this, even if they never mention it directly. They notice whether a man speaks respectfully about people from his past. They notice whether he approaches life with curiosity or with resentment. They notice whether he has become more patient over the years or simply more cynical. Emotionally mature men don't feel the need to prove that they've seen everything or know everything. In fact, one of the signs of real confidence is the willingness to keep learning. They ask questions, remain open to new ideas, and understand that growth doesn't stop simply because they've reached a certain age. That mindset is refreshing because it creates balance. Experience gives them stability, while humility keeps them approachable. Together, those qualities create a presence that feels both reassuring and genuine. In the end, age isn't what attracts people. It's what you've done with the years you've been given. A man who has transformed experience into wisdom carries himself differently. He doesn't chase attention because he understands. His worth isn't measured by who notices him. And that quiet certainty often becomes one of the most attractive qualities he possesses. Younger women are often paying attention to this, even if they never mention it directly. They notice whether a man speaks respectfully about people from his past. They notice whether he approaches life with curiosity or with resentment. They notice whether he has become more patient over the years or simply more cynical. Emotionally mature men don't feel the need to prove that they've seen everything or know everything. In fact, one of the signs of real confidence is the willingness to keep learning. They ask questions, remain open to new ideas, and understand that growth doesn't stop simply because they've reached a certain age. That mindset is refreshing because it creates balance. Experience gives them stability, while humility keeps them approachable. Together, those qualities create a presence that feels both reassuring and genuine. In the end, age isn't what attracts people. It's what you've done with the years you've been given. A man who has transformed experience into wisdom carries himself differently. He doesn't chase attention because he understands his worth isn't measured by who notices him. And that quiet certainty often becomes one of the most attractive qualities he possesses. If there's one message I hope you take away from this video, it's this. Attracting younger women isn't about trying to become a younger man. It's about becoming the strongest, most grounded version of the man you already are. Throughout this discussion, we've seen that genuine attraction rarely begins with expensive clothes, perfect looks, or carefully rehearsed lines. It grows from something much deeper. It comes from confidence that isn't dependent on approval, emotional stability that doesn't disappear when life becomes uncertain, and a sense of purpose that exists whether someone is in your life or not. When a man values his time, he teaches other people to value it too. When he listens instead of trying to impress, conversations become meaningful instead of exhausting. When he responds with patience instead of panic, he creates emotional safety. And when he embraces his years with quiet confidence instead of apologizing for them, he begins to stand out for all the right reasons. The reality is that not every younger woman will be attracted to an older man, and that's perfectly normal. Attraction has never been about appealing to everyone. It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally connects with those who appreciate your character, your maturity, and the life you've built. So rather than asking yourself, how can I make younger women like me? Try asking a different question. Am I becoming a man I genuinely respect? Because the answer to that question influences every relationship you'll ever have. The men who leave the strongest impression aren't chasing attention. They're building meaningful lives, protecting their peace, continuing to grow, and treating others with confidence and respect. Ironically, those are often the very men who attract people without making attraction their primary goal. If you found today's video valuable, let me know in the comments. Which of these lessons do you think most men overlook? I'd genuinely love to hear your perspective and join the conversation. And if you enjoy exploring the psychology behind attraction, relationships, and human behavior, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thank you for spending your time with me today. My name is Sadia Khan, and I'll see you in the next